Sacred geometry. The patterns that we give meaning to because of cultural, historical, or aesthetic relevance. This could be something like scrolling on Pinterest, viewing the saris in your mom's closet, or simply doodling on a notebook. We are perpetuating symbols all the time, and these symbols come together to form a geometry of design, a geometry of art that we have imprinted on our consciousness throughout history. Sacred geometry, the way that I define it, are the patterns that hold value because of their history, but also because of the stories that they carry. Rangoli is a very popular Indian art form that women and often servants will put outside of Indian houses to ward off evil spirits and to promote peace and prosperity. Rangoli designs nowadays can be seen by many modern South Asian women as tattoos. I even have one right here. So it again brings up the question of what is the significance of ancient sacred geometry in day-to-day living, and how is this perpetuated not only by social media, the digital age, and the records that we keep and that we read, but also just by our own thought processes and the creativity that we decide to embark on, the things that we decide to create because of our own free will and because of our own taste. Geometry is also found in writing, even in the transition from oral cultures to written cultures with cuneiform writing and Egyptian hieroglyphics back in 3,500 BC in ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia. We see sacred geometry in the patterns. We see symbols being used as a placeholder for words and ideas, and how these ideas were then able to spread as a universal language because of these symbols. Taking ancient artwork of any form and translating it to the digital age can often be categorized as remixing. In Remixing, Decolonial Strategies and Cultural Production, an article by SCZ, they say, "Through the remix, we are able to signify the past as a means of informing the present and provide a frame for the future." In this quote, I see a promise to stay grounded in historical accuracy and ancient tradition while making room for innovation, while making room for a transcendence of the past. This is a hand-woven sari, one of the oldest Indian garments, one that is still worn by millions of women around the world today. And so the question here is, what does this sari have to do with the legacies of Indian and South Asian women throughout history? We are seeing such a resurgence in transforming old saris and old hand-woven textiles, specifically in South Asia, into wearable streetwear, into fashion that is on the red carpet, into fashion that is shown all over social media again, and fashion that is now being worn by people outside of the South Asian culture. So now we're seeing that with the digital age, the sacred geometry that was once confined to South Asia geographically is now being worn by Beyonce, by Bella Hadid, by all of these celebrities that might not have a stake in the cultural significance of the textile or the fabric or the history or what it means or what it holds, but is wearing it for its aesthetic purpose. Which again brings up the question of how can we give an information object value when some of its value comes from aesthetic appeal and artistic appeal, and some of the value is coming from historical significance and the stories attached to it. Another example of this, the famous British TV personality Tan France, who's known for his role in Queer Eye as the fashion guy. In this video from Architectural Digest, Tan France is seen referencing his Pakistani heritage as inspiration for a closet that he wants to create. Though much of the audience of this digital video might not know the Pakistani history, the Islamic history, the Mughal history of these symbols, they are getting a snapshot into his connection to them because of the way he's told the story. He said, "In my upbringing, I was able to visit Pakistan and I grew up with all these symbols that resonated with me inside. And now I want to bring a piece of my history, a piece of my culture with me as I build this new closet." And this story is what resonates with viewers. And this story is what people will remember every time they see something that's similar. So what better way to understand all these floating concepts than to actually visit an exhibit in real life? everything these days is digital, so of course you can view an exhibit online, you can view an interview of an artist online, but there's a specific value to actually going in person and seeing with your own human eyes somebody else's art creation. And that's exactly what I did. I wore this sari that was gifted to me by my partner years ago from a small town in Orissa, hand-woven, a specific weave. I wore this sari because this is what reminds me of sacred geometry. And I went to this exhibit at the Seattle Asian Art Museum. The current featured artist is this Pakistani woman called Anila Quyayum Agha. She was born in Lahore, Pakistan, and went to school being taught by British expats at a time where colonial rule was very heavy in Pakistan. And she speaks of the fact that she had no female role models that taught her it was okay to be an artist. She had to really carve that path for herself, and she had to fight for her art to gain the global stage that it has. The value of this is that people from all over have seen her artwork. At this exhibit, she's crafted carved cubes, bending light in all these different angles and casting shadows on the entire room around them, as you can see. And this experience is transformative. You go there, and whether you're a little child or a grown adult or somebody else, it doesn't matter what your age or creed is. You go there and you're moved by this art. And I think this is the value of creativity as a means of information sharing. Creativity and creation from a human lens, not from an AI lens, but from a human lens, becomes the vehicle for sharing cultural stories. Now, when anybody, regardless of their background or their race, goes to the Seattle Asian Art Museum, they can see the historic Mughal Jali work, the architecture that's in Alhambra, a palace in Spain, all these different motifs and geometric designs that historically have carried so much value and significance that now shape Anila Quyayum Agha's work. Because of the fact that she's created it into a physical object, this object translates all those ideas through rays of light directly into other people. Similarly, the Taj Mahal, one of the most famous wonders of the world, has its historical relevance because of the story that it tells. The story of Shah Jahan and Mumtaz Mahal, the love of his life, who died too early in childbirth and for whom he built this entire tomb of love. People see it as a monument of love, and though it is historically beautiful, it is one of numerous buildings and architectural wonders left from the Mughal Empire, but yet it is the one that shows up on every single postcard of India. The first thing that comes to people's minds is the Taj Mahal, and this is because of the story that it carries. People think of it and they think of love, because love is so universal and creativity is so universal. When you bridge those two universal ideas, you get a story that stands the test of time. Looking at art as an information object, first we have to define what an information object actually is. Michael Buckland, an information science professor at UC Berkeley, said that a key characteristic of information as knowledge is that it is intangible. One cannot touch it or measure it in any direct way. Knowledge, belief, and opinion are personal, subjective, and conceptual. And to communicate them, they have to be expressed, described, or represented in a physical way as a signal, test, or communication. Buckland describes information as a process, a knowledge, and a thing. When we look at art, it is all three. It is a process, the creative process. It is knowledge, as in the knowledge that somebody gains and the inspiration that somebody gains from viewing it, and thing, a physical object, a concept, or an idea. When we look at Figure 1, the 4 aspects of information, we see a breakdown of information that is intangible, tangible, that is a process, and that is currently processing. Anila Quyayum Agha's artwork falls under multiple characteristics: an intangible entity, information as knowledge in the form of inspiration; information as thing, as in a physical object that is a thing; and information as process, becoming informed. Geometric designs, sacred geometry, hold information as an information object, but also because of the stories that they weave within a cultural context. In this diagram I made of seeing art as an information object, creation is both the birthing point and the end point, as in the starting point of this circle. So from creation, we go to perception. After a work of art is created, it is then perceived. And some will argue that the perception of the art as art is what makes it art. After creation, it is then perceived, and from this perception, the perceiver gives the information object value and a story. And these words are often synonymous in this definition. Creation is given value through the perception of it and goes on to become an inspiration. People, artists like myself, go to this exhibit, see this physical artwork, and become inspired from it. From that inspiration, create new art. Just like all energy cannot be created or destroyed, I believe ideas are the same way. All ideas come from another idea, but are simply jumping points from one idea to the other as information and ideas and energy are being transformed and transferred. Diving deeper into stories as a vehicle for information and a vehicle for shaping how we live our lives, historically, history has been perpetuated and written by the victors. Historically, these people in power have been, you guessed it, white men who have been in positions of power. As a woman of color myself, and as someone who has knowledge of history but also a hope for the future, I view information and the stories we tell about it to be something completely in our power. We can perpetuate a story of colonization and industrialization into victimhood, or we can transform these stories into something new. We can look at Anila Quyayum Agha's artwork as a testament to the struggle she's endured, or a testament to a world that's changing, a world where women of color, Pakistani women, South Asian women, all people have a right and an equal opportunity to inspire others with their artwork. I want to bring up this point of dilution, of powerful art being diluted to fit a digital lens. Because this generation's attention spans are so much shorter, art is being packaged into short-form content in order to be fed into people. There's this idea that people don't have the energy to watch a full video or to go to a physical museum, so they should be fed a little snapshot of the museum from their phone. But looking at this phone and scrolling through your feed, looking at Anila Quyayum Agha's Geometry of Light for 1 second on your feed will not have nearly as much of a profound impact as the physical act of going there and really seeing it with your own eyes. Compare it to the process of making clothes. Yes, you can get a shirt for $5 from Zara or H&M, but you can also get a sari like this for maybe $100, hand-woven in a small village in the north of India, something that carries so much more history, so much more weight to it, and every time you put on this garment of cloth, you are able to feel that weight. The stories that are often forgotten are those that are not given enough weight. And with so much digital art around us, we are giving this physical weight to the cloud, quite literally. We are letting algorithms and artificial intelligence determine what we find exciting and what we find inspiring. Our circle of creativity, our circle of art as an information object, is then not complete because we are getting fed inputs from all these avenues that might not resonate with the story we tell, the story of who we are, and the story of who we want to be. I believe there is such an importance to giving platforms and giving visibility to cultural artists, to artists that tell a story with their art, to artists that might have underrepresented or marginalized voices, but also just anybody who wants to express themselves. Because as human beings, we are put onto this earth to create. We are put onto this earth to create either with our bodies, to create more people, and to create things for other people to enjoy. To the question, why do we want to be remembered? I will answer, because we want to remember ourselves. Because we crave curiosity and we also crave answers. We crave the journey. We crave the searching. Because this is why we are here. We are here to search for our own end. We are here to search for what brings us value. And we are here to live through the ups and downs, to live through the waves, until every piece that we collect of our life becomes its own sacred geometry. and becomes its own textile of all the experiences we are weaving together. As I visited this exhibit, there was this man named Bob who saw my sari and asked to take a photo of me.
As a photographer, I enjoy the challenge of creating new and different things that hopefully not only inform me about what I'm photographing and the culture behind it and the ideas behind it, but also to find something in myself that I can relate to and that's universal, that connects with other cultures, other people, other ways of expression. And it's just it's a way to kind of go inside yourself to find out what you're really all about, and you can do that vis-a-vis your art form, your artwork. And it's the challenge is to come up with new and different approaches in your photography, because you don't want to do the same thing you've done yesterday. So how do you get outside yourself and not repeat what you've done before? And that's the challenge. And I think a lot of it's relaxation, where you're not preoccupied with who you are, but you're more open to what's coming in.
Perfect. Yeah. He speaks of photography, but these are words that any artist, any person can live by. Inputs and outputs, external, internal, energy coming in and out. We are all just parts of this puzzle that we call life. We are all watching as things happen around us and in us. And sometimes all we can do to cope with it is to create. This creation is the most valuable part of being human. And viewing others' creativity as a mirror can allow us to find that deeper inspiration within ourselves. The things that we create might not have value at a global scale, but have value because we created them. This is why we're so drawn to artifacts that our family leaves behind. This is why we love hearing about people's great-grandmother's scarf, why we attach historical significance to items of the past. It's because we are obsessed with stories, but we are also obsessed with ourselves. We are a living, moving geometry of all that we've experienced. The most beautiful geometry is when these individual patterns can collide. My conversation with Bob opened up a whole new world within me, that a 20-year-old Indian American girl can go to a museum on a whim, videotape herself, and end up having a 30-minute conversation with an 80-year-old retired photographer about Islamic symbolism, the nature of creativity, and the human life. These conversations are what bridge difference over time. There's always more to add to this geometry, and you also never know who's watching. You never know who your art is inspiring. So the only thing we can keep doing is creating in whatever form. And we have to go to museums more often, because you never know who you're going to meet at a museum.